morning, ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure for me to welcome you this morning to the 9th African Economic Conference, jointly organized by the Economic Commission for Africa, the African Development Bank, and the United Nations Economic Development Program. The theme of this year's conference is knowledge and innovation for Africa's transformation, and I have the pleasure of moderating the opening of this conference and play in the process of promoting structural transformation and inclusive development. Yet we are observing a persistent technology gap on the continent, which must be addressed in order to truly take advantage of the opportunities we have in Africa and the opportunities available to all African countries in today's world. African countries also face the challenge of skills and innovation deficit. And we have the potential to generate jobs for the youth and women and increase productivity and competitiveness if we can address these challenges. So in fact, the list of important issues to deliberate during this conference is extensive. And I am pleased to have with us today distinguished speakers from leading institutions and from the government to provide their insights and perspectives on the issues we are going to deliberate on over the next 3 days. So let me introduce our speakers to provide their welcoming remarks. Her Excellency, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, Chairperson, African Union Commission, Honorable Dimito Hambisa, Minister of Science and Technology, the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, Dr. Carlos Lopez, UN Under-Secretary General and Executive Secretary, Economic Commission for Africa, Mr. Eugene Uso, UN Resident Coordinator and UNDP Resident Representative in Ethiopia, and Mr. Steve Kaize Mugwera, Acting Chief Economist and Vice President of African Development Bank. So let me invite Dr. Carlos Lopez, Executive Secretary of Economic Commission for Africa, to give his welcoming remarks.
Thank you, Adam. Madame Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, la présidente de la Commission de l'Union africaine, ma sœur, Madame Dimito Hambisa, la ministre de la Science, pour la Science et la Technologie de la République fédérale démocratique d'Éthiopie, Monsieur Steve Kaize Mugwera, qui est l'économiste-chef et vice-président en exercice de la Banque africaine de développement, mon collègue Eugene Usu, qui est le représentant du PNUD en Éthiopie, et j'aimerais aussi reconnaître la présence de beaucoup d'anciens ministres et collègues comme mes amis Hamid Temar, Gunilla Carlson, et aussi le ministre de l'Industrie et du Commerce du Maroc qui éventuellement va nous rejoindre, ainsi que Atonewa et Gebrehab, le conseiller économique du Premier ministre d'Éthiopie. Mesdames et Messieurs, Excellences, invités distingués, j'ai le plaisir de vous accueillir à la 9e conférence économique africaine. Suite à notre appel à la communication, nous avons reçu une riche moisson de contributions pour appuyer l'élaboration par des Africains de politiques menées en Afrique. Cette conférence vient à un moment particulièrement important dans le programme de transformation de la CA. Elle est également très à propos pour la CA et son ambition de devenir le premier laboratoire d'idées d'Afrique afin de mieux aider les États membres à surmonter les problèmes que pose la transformation structurelle. Ces 9 dernières années, avec la Banque africaine de développement et le Programme des Nations unies pour le développement, nous avons offert, grâce à cette conférence, une plateforme où apprendre, échanger des points de vue et enrichir les débats intellectuels du continent. Cette année, la conférence porte sur le thème « Savoir et innovation pour la transformation de l'Afrique », un sujet qui est très cher à notre présidente de l'Union africaine. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the continent abounds with examples of knowledge helping change the narrative. Kenya's financial inclusion performance through mobile banking is now quoted worldwide. Cardiopad, invented by Arthur Zhang, a 24-year-old Cameroonian engineer, enables heart examinations through tablets. The Saphonian, invented by Anis Ayouni from Tunisia, attempts to offer an alternative way to harness wind and generate green energy that can be converted to electricity. In South Africa, a pedal-operated, self-contained, easy-to-assemble waterless toilet called the Savilu is being rolled out to respond to the need for innovative sanitation solutions. Eneza, that means to reach or to spread in Kiswahili, a virtual tutor and teacher's assistant on a low-cost mobile phone, is making waves in East Africa. M-Farm provides up-to-date market information and links farmers to buyers through a virtual marketplace and shared current agri-trends. These innovations bode well for the future. However, supplemental work is still required to speed up the pace of creation, as well as the absorption rate of new technologies, and spread these same technologies to all sectors of our economies. I'm encouraged by your strong turnout. Both young researchers and highly respected professors are here to make a contribution. Your respective institutions continue to create opportunities to engage and exchange with industry leaders from Africa's emerging knowledge and technology-driven commerce. I cannot overemphasize the importance of fostering a continuous dialogue between those who create knowledge and those who commercialize knowledge in the quest for structural transformation, industrialization, and sustainable development of the continent. As you know, sharing has a multiplier effect on knowledge dissemination. Arguably, one of the most important developments of the 20th century for enhancing economic development was the emergence and establishment of the knowledge-based global economy. Africa has to be prepared. We can actually be net beneficiaries of this focus on the role of information, technology, and learning as a determinant of economic performance. We can leapfrog. We can offer frugal innovation. Technology has important implications for our ability to identify and exploit opportunities, to transform our economies, and for the employability of our growing young population. In today's knowledge-driven global economy, innovation and technology-oriented education is vital for sustained economic performance and competitiveness. In practical terms, innovation and technology-oriented education gives our youth critical building blocks to secure their future. It ensures their integration into the more productive sectors of an economy and also gives them the capability to generate new sectors and products. In this context, the common African position on the post-2015 agenda is clear. No one is to be left behind. The continent is aiming for inclusive and sustainable growth that leads to the uplifting of each and every single African. We want simple households to be capable of building wealth, whether by establishing a competitive small business or by plugging into an industrialization drive. For this to happen, we have to upgrade skills and make them responsive to the employment demands. Let me delve a little deeper into the demands of a knowledge-based economy. One of its central manifestations is the codification of knowledge and its transmission through communications and computer networks. This means that workers must acquire a range of skills in order to meet the requirement to grow and learn continuously. At present, the world thrives in a learning economy. We must adapt and equip our youth with the ability to keep learning and, more importantly, implant in them a problem-solving mindset that will be a rich source of innovative ideas. Enabling innovation to spread through the entire economy implies an obvious role for governments and learning institutions. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the Ebola crisis in Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone is a tough reminder of how skills deficit on the continent can have a dramatic impact on the economic progression of affected economies. I certainly do not intend to dwell on missed opportunities of our education and wider national innovation systems. Suffice it to say that we have allowed ourselves to be lagging behind by just copying and pasting without learning. Our cumulative deficiencies in education, skills generation, and innovation pose an enormous threat to our ambitions for sustainable and inclusive growth. How do we change this attitude? By making sure that we are strategic in our investments and see social spending as part of our investment into the future. We are not going to be taken seriously if all we care is to have more GDP growth without translating it into quality. Countries that understand the scale of the challenge are the ones capable of relating policy ambition with dynamic innovation systems. If I seem to insist on national innovation systems, it is because a country's innovative performance depends critically on a collective system of knowledge creation. It also depends on how we manage knowledge centrally and how we use it, and how, with new technologies, we combine it. I should stress that national innovation systems can and should be complemented and enhanced by regional and continental systems. Some of our countries are a little more advanced than others. For instance, several South African, Egyptian, and Ugandan universities earned a world ranking in 2014 by the Center for World University Rankings. We can learn from their experience. I see an important role for the sharing of resources in the context of and in the furtherance of regional integration. I believe that most African governments recognize the importance of knowledge and also knowledge generation and innovation, but that is not enough. They need the institutional mechanisms that will help the majority of their citizens to derive direct benefits from it. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, a key challenge for many of our countries is mobilizing finance to make the required reforms happen. The solution might come from building public and private partnerships. For instance, much of the job of reskilling our labor force takes place at the level of structured and on-the-job skills development programs in which business is a driving force. Where needed, business is already finding enough skilled workers to start low-end value addition. This is good news, but hardly heartening. We are only going to scale up industrialization if we respond to higher and sizable skills demands. For that, we need more synergy and synchrony between public and private sector actors. capacities is not the same as capabilities. We have lots of capabilities, but we need capacities. We need capacity for strategic decision making, capacity for enhanced productive economic activities, capacities for aggressive absorption and generation of knowledge-intensive technologies. Ladies and gentlemen, in one sentence, capacity to transform growth into quality growth. This is a fantastic challenge for an intergenerational group of African economists like the one we have in this room. I thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Carlos Lopez. Indeed, in the continent, we need to transform knowledge into innovations and skills, and to have the capacity to transform growth into quality jobs, quality investments. Now I have the honor, ladies and gentlemen, to invite Her Excellency Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, Chairperson, African Union Commission.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Your Excellency Dr. Carlos Lopez, Executive Secretary of UNECA, and good brother, Excellency Minister Demit Hambisa, Minister of Science and Technology of the Federal Republic of Ethiopia, my sister AU Commission of the Economic Affairs, Dr. Anthony Murupeng, Dr. Stephen Kaisis Mugerwa, Acting Chief Economist and Vice President of ADB, Mr. Eugene Owusu, UNDP Representative in Ethiopia, esteemed panelists and participants, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm indeed honored to address this year's African Economic Conference on the theme Knowledge and Innovation for Africa's Transformation. The Science and Technology and Innovation Strategy of Africa, STISA 2024, adopted this year, emphasizes the importance of a skilled workforce, technology, and the use of global and indigenous knowledge for Africa's transformation. In a similar vein, the 2014 African Transformation Report by the African Center for Transformation noted, I quote, economic transformation demands a healthy workforce equipped with knowledge and skills to be highly productive in the workforce and to generate innovations in technologies, processes, products, and services, close quotes. At the same time, there isn't more powerful symbol of our challenges in this regard than the fact that the most common symbol of African agriculture is a woman working in the fields with a handheld hoe. It is therefore not surprising that women have highlighted as one of their immediate aspirations to have this archaic and back-breaking tool to be relegated to the museums. Skills, technology, knowledge, and innovation are critical to all areas of African transformation, from the modernization of agriculture to having resilient and effective public health systems in order to fight disease, as we have seen today with Ebola. It is required to build and maintain infrastructure, transport, ICT, irrigation, storage, and energy for the development of industry, manufacturing, and services, and for agro-processing, beneficiation, and value addition. So we need these skills, technology, knowledge, and innovation to ensure democratic and responsive governance that can deliver effective public services and to facilitate universal access to basic needs such as food, nutrition, water and sanitation, shelter, health and education. These issues are critical to our Agenda 2063, the 50-year vision for the Africa we want, as well as the common Africa position on the post-2015 development agenda and the aspirations of our people for a prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth and sustainable development. An integrated continent, politically united and based on the ideals of Pan-Africanism and the vision of the African Renaissance. An Africa of good governance, democracy, respect for human rights, gender equality, justice, and the rule of law. A peaceful and secure Africa, a strong cultural identity, common heritage, shared values and ethics. Development that is people-driven and that unleashes the potential of its women and youth, and a continent that is a strong, united, and influential global partner. But to achieve these aspirations, Africa must invest in its most precious resource, its people, to ensure that it can use its other resources, land, minerals, energy, oceanic resources, forests, etc., and to modernize, integrate, and build shared prosperity. Because without the skills, we cannot do anything with our minerals, with our land, with our oceanic resources, or any of our natural resources. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the conference concept note paper identifies the reasons for the slow pace of skills and technology development and innovation, including such factors as the absence of a critical mass of university-educated skilled labor force, insufficient enrollment in institutions for technical and vocational education, lack of appropriate innovation ecosystem, including investment in science, technology, and research, few structured on-the-job skills development programs, lack of capital for innovations, and the fact that less than 25% of African students participate in science, technology, engineering, and maths, STEM. So the process of the development of Agenda 2063 is drawing towards a close with its representation to January Summit AU Summit for Adoption. Part of this last lap is to identify the critical actions and issues that must be in place during the first decade to enable us to reach a tipping point to ensure sustainable transformation. Clearly, the skills revolution we have been advocating for is one such critical area in order to increase the number of children, boys and girls, in quality secondary education and ensure science, maths and technology as well as vocational and technical training are critical parts of the curricula across the continent. For this, we need to develop teachers, not only at a country level, but across regions, and for the whole continent, sharing resources and using technology. And these days, it should be easy to utilize the good teachers in STEM that we have across countries and across regions if we utilize the technology available today. And of course, strengthening our higher education sector, especially universities, where we have seen increase in enrollment of about 16% over the last decade. Yet this is still insufficient. We must therefore all support the University Summit planned for Dakar, Senegal in March next year, to ensure that we have in place a strategy for investing in higher education. The harmonization of qualifications and curricula, improving access to e-learning, strengthening science, engineering, and maths, and building links between education and the private sector so as to prevent the absurdity of graduate unemployment. Building national, regional, and continental infrastructure and systems for innovation and technology so that our scientists and researchers can share and collaborate with each other, as well as have access to capital to develop and market their innovations. There are lots of examples of innovations that were done in Africa but commercialized in other parts of the world. So it's important to have capital for the development of what our young people and our scientists innovate. Deliberate strategies to increase the number of girls and women in science, technology and engineering, innovation and technology, from primary to postdoctoral levels, including the number of faculty members. And I don't think I need to emphasize this point. We just need to look around this room and you can see what I mean. Engage with the private sector on the continent to ensure close cooperation on identifying and addressing the skills gap and putting in place labor market institutions that allow for on-the-job training, smooth education to work transitions, and for entrepreneurship and innovations. We therefore keenly look forward to the concrete actions issues arising from your discussions so that we strengthen Agenda 2063 on these critical matters. And I wish this conference very successful deliberations and a good input into Agenda 2063. I thank you.
Thank you, Excellency, Dr. Lamine Zuma. Indeed, achieving Africa 2063 agenda will require skilled labor and a workforce equipped with knowledge, skills, and technology. We hope that the papers to be presented over the next 3 days will help us answer some of these challenges. Now I would like to invite Dr. Steve Kaizi Mugero, Acting Chief Economist and Vice President of African Development Bank, to provide his welcoming remarks.
Your Excellencies, Honorable Demitu Ambisa, Minister of Science and Technology, the Federal Republic of Ethiopia, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Dr. Carlos Lopez, Executive Secretary of ECA, and our host today, Dr. Eugene Owusu, UNDP Resident Representative in Ethiopia and UN Coordinator, University Vice Chancellors among us, scholars from Africa and the world at large, invitees from the world of business and commerce, ladies and gentlemen. I'm extremely happy to be here. I'm extremely happy to return to Ethiopia. And I'm also extremely glad to be part of the deliberations of today. I would like to thank you, Adam, for your very generous introductions. I also like to thank you, all of you, for accepting to come to this conference jointly organized by the Economic Commission for Africa, by United Nations Development Program, and of course the African Development Bank. Dr. Carlos, many thanks for hosting us. This is the 9th in a series of the African Economic Conference. Madame Zuma, thank you very much for gracing this occasion with your presence. I know that you have a very heavy agenda these days indeed. Now, the importance of this conference is that every year it attracts you policymakers, members of civil society, and us rather humbler economists to come out here and discuss the challenges facing our continent. This year we decided to invite some African university vice-chancellors specifically so that we could interact, and you are going to enjoy some of the things they're going to be saying later on in the 3-day program. I would also heartily like to say that I welcome all of you researchers that have contributed papers to this conference, and of course the joint staffs of the 3 institutions that have worked very hard to make this conference a reality. Now I must say, ladies and gentlemen, that we have a saying in Uganda that when the big guns have spoken, imagine boom, 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 the small ones should not be heard at all. So, ideally I should not have spoken at all, but I also happen to be representing a rather big gun. So I bring you greetings from Dr. Kaberuka, President of the African Development Bank. He holds the theme of our 3-day conference, Knowledge, Innovation for Africa's Transformation, in very high regard indeed. And he's what you might call a true believer. The theme of today touches on many things that he has tried to do in his close to 10-year tenure at the ADB. The emphasis on infrastructure, boosting the private sector in Africa, promoting science and technology, and developing capacities in the public sector. Unfortunately, he has not been able to make the trip to Addis Ababa this week, caught up in discussing programs to support our member countries that have been affected by the Ebola disease, a disease which in some respects has defined the extent of our ignorance in Africa and globally, but which has also raised our resolve to use our knowledge and innovativeness to fight back. His message to you all, which applies equally to addressing the epidemics confronting Africa, but also the challenges of Africa's transformation, is the following: that defy those that would declare defeat, indeed sign the act of surrender even before the real battle has begun. That where there is a will, there is a way. Now let me briefly come to the theme of this conference in my brief welcoming remarks. The knowledge innovation for Africa's transformation is, to my mind, a very powerful theme indeed. It is extremely attractive and is very inspirational. I therefore commend our joint staffs, including our media teams, for the many hours that they put together to find the right tone of the conference, the right inflection. The theme is certainly different from the ones we have used in the past. However, even as we jubilate at the innovativeness of finding the right theme for this conference, a provocative observer and listener could ask you, what knowledge do you have in mind? In the broad scheme of things, how do you determine innovativeness? Is it a mere recycling of ideas? Where do you want to transform Africa to? So the point I'm trying to make is that underlying our very attractive theme are a number of extremely tough and even ugly realities. Those of political economy, abject poverty, inadequate and fragile leadership, uninspiring education curricula, broad gender inequalities and disparities, and inequality in access to new technologies. So, looking ahead, how can our conference make a real difference? A lot has been said already, so I'm going to be extremely brief. I think it can make a difference by being a clarion call to action. when you look across the African policy landscape today, it's fully packed with themes covering as many subjects as challenges. There's not a single challenge on which we don't have some kind of prescription out there in the marketplace. I always like to cite the example of one of my favorite politicians, David Kenneth Kaunda, but not from today, but 50 years ago. In 1963, David Kaunda was only 38 years old and was trying to win power for his party. And so he presented in Lusaka his manifesto, the manifesto which he called When UNIP Becomes Government. UNIP, of course, was his United National Independence Party of Zambia. He said in that manifesto 50 years ago that he would use the resources of Zambia, which is copper, to eliminate poverty, ignorance, and disease. And you can imagine, these are the things we have been trying to fight and try to eliminate for 50 years and more. And Madame Zuma is spearheading Africa 2063 is still the same themes. So, 50 years ago, we really had already the kind of prescription. So what has been lacking all along is really implementation, is action. So, finally, when I was a very young student in Uganda, those many years ago, I used to walk past Makerere University. Those of you that know Makerere University, it had very humble origins. It was a trade school. It was really set up to train technicians and plumbers for the colonial government. It later on, of course, became a big center of learning in Africa. It had a few problems, of course, but even today some people grumble about when Makerere was Makerere a while back. But in any case, when I was a very young person, I would see this very big gate to Makerere, and there was an insignia or a herald at arms for the university in gold, of course it was then. And there was a dictum on this insignia, and the dictum was pro futuro edificamus. Those of you that know a bit of Latin can even guess. Futuro meaning future, edificamus meaning the edifice. It really means we build for the future. I therefore hope and trust that we dove in discussions of various types in these 3 days on our chosen theme of knowledge and innovation for Africa's transformation, that we shall be conscious of the importance of moving from aspiration to action, of building for the future. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Steve. Moving from aspiration to action, of course, requires a lot of institutional changes and support, which I believe the bank will support with money, as well as ideas. Thank you. I have the honor now to invite Mr. Eugene Osu, United Nations Resident Coordinator and UNDP Resident Representative in Ethiopia, to give his remarks.
Thank you, my good friend Adam. Excellency Dr. Dlamini Zuma, the chairperson of the African Union Commission, Excellency the Minister of Science and Technology of our host country, Ethiopia, Madam Demitu Hambisa, my senior colleague, Dr. Carlos Lopes, Executive Secretary of ECA, Dr. Steve Kaizi Mugerwa, who is Vice President at the Africa Development Bank. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to join you today on behalf of UNDP Africa's Regional Bureau Director, Mr. Abdullah Mahdir, at the opening of this very important conference, the 9th African Economic Conference. We at the UNDP are proud to once again join our partners at the Economic Commission for Africa and the Africa Development Bank to co-organize this event. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this conference is certainly taking place at a time when, in my very strong opinion, the narrative of Africa Rising is no longer up for debate. The continent, our continent, is currently experiencing, as all of us do know, robust economic growth. Social service delivery is being significantly enhanced. We see strong elements of improved governance. Africans have become more confident about their continent, and there is a growing positive perception of this continent. As many of us do know, 6 out of the world's 10 fastest growing economies in 2014, this year, will be from this continent. The MDG Africa report that we will be launching later today indicates that Africa has registered significant achievements across all the Millennium Development Goals. However, we also do know that there are significant challenges that confront the continent, which require innovative approaches and indeed innovative solutions. Despite falling poverty levels on this continent, large disparities in socioeconomic indicators continue to persist across regions, within countries, and between men and women. These disparities are reinforcing the challenges of inequality and social exclusion, which tends to translate into conflicts, violence, and different forms of social injustices. Then there are the challenges of jobless growth, vulnerabilities to external shocks, and the growing youth unemployment. To ensure inclusion and enhance resilience, as well as sustain the development gains that this continent has made, Africa needs and should significantly invest in knowledge and innovation. Here in Ethiopia, we are using knowledge and innovation to bring about transformation through targeted interventions that are helping unleash the entrepreneurial spirit of Ethiopians, particularly women and youth. We are doing this through an entrepreneurship development program and leveraging key partnerships with a large number of stakeholders, including Canada and Microsoft. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, development challenges today, as all of us do know, are not only complex, but they are also interconnected. At the heart of solving such complex challenges lies innovation and knowledge. Allow me to use this opportunity to share with you 4 important points of reference to help frame your reflections over the next 3 days. First, innovation that spreads across a wide range of fields can steadily break down social, political,